Jake Miller is a candidate for treasurer of Cumberland County, and if you would introduce yourself and tell people why you're running for treasurer.
Super, yeah, thank you. Thank you all for coming. Promise not to take up too much time as your caboose, but I would like to share a bit about my experience and my vision for how I see the county in a fiduciary sense. So thank you for sticking around. My name is Jake Miller, and I am running for Cumberland County Treasurer. Currently, I am a school teacher. I teach 8th grade civics and history, and I teach at Cumberland Valley School District. I began my career actually as a math teacher, so I find the Treasury to be a fun blend of both of the things that I love, math and our sense of duty as Americans and Pennsylvanians and Cumberland Countians, which is a fun word to say. But why I am running is because I look at the faces of my 1- and 3-year-old children. 1-year-old just turned yesterday. May the 4th be with him. And I love our county, and I want it to be as great or greater for them as it is for all of us in this room. And I think that is a bipartisan, nonpartisan message. I just so happen to be in the Democratic Party, and that's how I'm running. But I would beg you to look at my website, www.mrjakemiller.com, or follow me on social media, any handle, Mr. Jake Miller, to see that my message hopefully has no party except the American Party. Our county is the fastest growing county by far, and it will be changing. It's changing up here. You know what it looks like. Fields that used to be in existence are now lots for homes, and in the southern part of the county, they are warehouses. That worries me a bit, and I want to be part of the solution. My grandfather used to say, if you see something changing, you better poo or get off the pot. So I'm here to ensure that it is that way for my children.
Thank you. First question, what is the bond rating for Cumberland County and why is it important?
So our county has a AAA bond rating. We are one of 4 counties that has it in the Commonwealth. Of the 57 counties, that is a great thing to have in place. The bond rating essentially means that we are in a good financial sense. That means that if problems come up or if big expenses appear, that we are in the financial safety to make those purchases. Now here's the thing in front of us. We are facing some pretty big expenses coming our way. I'm sure you've seen, if you're near the Carlisle area, that we are starting to replace some of the bridges across the county. I live right off of Orrs Bridge Road, which is the biggest expense that we are taking on right now in terms of those upgrades. The other 3 counties in our top 4 are Chester, Bucks, and Montgomery. So they've already gone through their population growth. They are still growing, but certainly not as fast of a clip as we are. That means that we need to make strong financial decisions to continue to be part of that, looking out for taxpayer dollar, but also to serve the taxpayer with the things that they need to keep in place. And as we continue to add more expenses to that, upgrading 911, and paying for other things like prison system, child services, our expenses are growing, and we need to make sure that we're in a good financial sense to meet those expenses.
Okay, thank you. And the second question is, would you please describe the duties of the county treasurer?
Sure. I've served as treasurer on a multitude of nonprofit organizations, and certainly a $284 million budget is a much larger component than any of those nonprofits that I've sat on. Every treasurer across the Commonwealth operates kind of differently, and I've reached out to every one of the 57 treasurers in our Commonwealth. I have met with several of them. I thought you were going to pass me notes.
No.
Okay.
There's 67.
60. Oh, I'm saying 57.
I told you I was a
Thank you.
government nerd.
Yes. 67. That is embarrassing. Yeah, I have reached out to all of the 67, and I have met with several of them, and it has been interesting to see how county by county every treasurer's office operates. One treasurer's office essentially operates as the tax collector from top to bottom, and their office is very large. Cumberland County's is much smaller. It's only 4.5 employees because in our county, the treasurer's office pretty much is the person in charge of ensuring that the revenue is coming in. We also have a controller, and we also have a director of finance who work with the commissioners. So there's a triangle that we have to ensure sound financial spending and making sure that our revenues are coming in properly and being used in our best method. And I plan on being a good part of that triangle.
Okay. All right, we have time scheduled for questions from the audience. Does anyone have a question for Jake about the job of county treasurer?
Who audits us?
Who audits us?
Yeah, you do the book.
Yes.
Who audits?
We have an internal audit from the controller's office. I don't know what company does external audit of the county though. Well, we have a Standard & Poor rating, yeah. So
I actually, in preparing for today, I Googled what our bond rating was and was astonished to find like a 4-page letter from Standard & Poor's about all of the things that Cumberland County has done to have a stable fiscal position. And I have to say, as a resident of Cumberland County, it made me feel good.
yeah, it is impressive.
It really was, and actually the other 3 counties who have AAA ratings are all in southeastern Pennsylvania around the city of Philadelphia and have a much broader tax base than we do.
And usually higher incomes.
Okay. How can the treasurer help Cumberland County reduce its carbon footprint?
That's a great question. I think it would be working with each of the specific departments. I think the treasurer's office can be best served by continuing win-wins regardless of the political issue. So for myself, for example, I am both saving money by installing solar panels on my home and reducing my carbon footprint, but that's just my single household. It would be great to see if we could look to find financial windfall, no pun intended, and by also exploring other methods to reduce carbon footprint. I would love to see, I've worked for the Pennsylvania Turnpike Commission, and they did a study on how much gasoline is wasted through the Turnpike Commission just by letting the vehicles run continuously. So I'd love to see if we could find win-wins in certain situations like that. Now that might seem like a very minor issue, but it would save each department on gas usage, but also save on what we would emit into our air.
Okay, we have one more question.
One more.
What sets you apart from your soon-to-be Republican opponent in the November 2019 election?
I think that's a great question. It's something that we need to start looking at moving forward. I very highly respect my opponent. The first time I met her was this week when a bunch of the candidates in the room were at Carlisle. So you will not see a divisive mudslinging campaign from me because tomorrow I have to answer to a bunch of 14-year-olds. So if this gets down and dirty, I have to say why I did that. And I can't, with good sound judgment, say that I'm going to go negative at any point. That said, I do feel that as a Democrat, as part of that triangle, I fulfill the founder's promise of checks and balances. Some people like to throw tar at the Democratic Party as something like the tax and spend party. that, you know, if I'm installed as a treasurer and I'm a Democrat, you know, oh, look out, AAA rating is gonna go all the way down to F. That is not the case. I want to be part of those checks and balances, and I think having a Democrat in there with a Republican controller and also a Republican director of finance or nonpartisan director of finance would be a strong suit of mine.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we're right on time, and again, I thank you, Indivisible, for arranging this. Thank you for inviting me to moderate. It's just has made me feel great, and thank every single one of you for coming out to show that you care and you want to be informed voters. So make sure to go to the polls and take everybody you can with you on May 21st for the primary, and do the same in November. Thank you very much.